Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 239 based on novel. So let's start. What's the matter? Yi Luotian doesn't seem to be in their team. Do they have any plans? Seeing that Yi Luotian was not in the team of Qin Huangmi Valley, Leng Bingshuang suddenly frowned and couldn't help but wonder. Maybe that's a wonderful plan for them, but for me, it should be expected. In contrast, Xiao Yan didn't have much surprise on his face. He should be able to guess the whereabouts of Yi Luotian. While Xiao Yang was observing the people in Qin Huang and Fan Jiyu, Qin Shuo's eyes also swept one by one from several people beside Xiao Yang. However, when he found the breadth of the 5 people facing him, his heart suddenly sank. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yang had 5 strong people in the source environment. At this time, Qin Shuo couldn't help thinking of Yi Luotian. That guy claimed that he was going to gather helpers. How come now, the war between the two sides is about to begin? On the contrary, there is no one there. Didn't he know the strength of Xiao Yang's side long ago, so he ran away alone? Damn it, that bastard shouldn't let him go so easily. With this in mind, the pressure on Qin Shuo's heart is even heavier. If Yi Luotian ran away alone as he thought in his heart, and now he completely threw this mess to Qin Huangmi Valley, wouldn't he be doomed? But they sent out the war in the afternoon. Is there any truth that war is war and no war is no war? Now, even if he is willing to admit defeat, I'm afraid it is the result of the war between the two sides. At this moment, Qin Shuo can only hope that Yi Luotian will not break his promise and never return. Otherwise, it is obviously impossible for these people behind him to fight with Xiao Yang. Unknowingly, Xiao Yang's power is much more terrible than the original behemoth of the western regions. Although the number of strong people fighting the emperor is less than that of Qin Huangmi Valley, as far as the number of strong people in the source environment is concerned, only one is enough to change the overall situation in an instant, not to mention that Xiao Yang has 2 more than them now. Ha ha ha, sect leader. Since they are now short of a strong person in Huiyuan territory, why don't we take this opportunity to solve them at once? Behind Xiao Yang, Fang Tonghui and Liu Cheng hurried forward and said with a grim smile. They don't mind this kind of looting. Of course, Xiao Yang won't. This is a war between the sectarian forces. To be honest, this kind of war is unfair in essence. Why should they wait because there is one less person on the other side? The so-called waiting will only increase the pressure on their side. Well, in that case, now. When the voice fell, Xiao Yang raised his right hand and waved it fiercely. Immediately, a group of people of Xiao Gate behind him started one after another and rushed to Qin Huangmi Valley opposite. At the same time, seeing that Xiao Yang and others actually took the lead in launching the attack, the people on the side of Qin Huangmi Valley also changed their face, especially Qin Shuo, who was the leader, couldn't help shouting abuse. Damn guy, if you don't show up again, I will tear you to pieces when I go back to find you. Then, Qin Shuo wanted to lead the people of Qin Huangmi Valley to attack Xiao Yang and his party. However, at this time, the sky where the two sides wanted to fight was higher, but suddenly there was a burst of laughter. Ha ha ha, Valley Master, if you don't come true, you'll be worried if you run away. At the same time when the laughter came out, the faces of the people and horses on both sides of Xiaomen and Qin Huangmi Valley changed one after another, and the forward body stopped. Everyone looked up and looked at a group of people slowly descending from the void ahead. At this moment, on the void, in the middle of the two parties, another group of people came here with a very strange attitude, and the person who was the first was the missing Yi Luotian. At this time, behind Yi Luotian, there was another group of people. There were not many people in this group, but there were only 13 people in total, but the appearance of these 13 people suddenly changed Xiao Yang's face, and the stone in his heart fell to the bottom of the valley in an instant. Among the 14 people in this line, in addition to Yi Luotian, the leader, there are 10 high-level fighting emperors and 2 strong people at the level of Huayuanjing. As for the black-robed man closest to Yi Luotian, his strong cultivation makes Xiao Yang feel a deep uneasiness in his heart. Return to the source. For this special feeling, Xiao Yang clearly felt it on Xingqian of the Herbalist Alliance. There is no doubt that this person must be a strong person at the level of source environment, And these 13 people, no doubt, are all people in the ghost hall. At the place where they came down, in addition to the swirling black fog, there was a broad black robe to cover their body shape, and their strange masks exposed to the air. Is it really the ghost hall? On a mountain far away from Shahepu, Xingqian and Han Dong were standing here, staring at the three forces in the city from a distance. When they saw the more than a dozen people in black robes, their faces became gloomy for a time. President, the cultivation of the leader. I can't be wrong. I'm also a strong person at the source level. Xingqian's face was dignified and slowly tunneled. Are we going to do it? Smell speech. Han Dong's face is slightly tight. He attaches great importance to Xiao Yang. If he can help, he also hopes to help the latter through this difficulty. Let's have a look first. We'd better not do it easily unless we have to. As soon as he said this, Han Dong also solemnly nodded, remained silent and continued to stare at the situation in the distant city. At the same time, on another mountain in the north, a group of people in black robes who can't see clearly also stand here. Under the black robes, a pair of golden eyes look at the scene in the city and are always vigilant. At the chest of these people in black robes, they all wear a badge with the word heaven without exception. On the court, with the appearance of more than 10 people, the faces of Xiao Yang changed dramatically one after another. The emergence of 10 high-level fighting emperors, 3 strong people in the source environment, and even one mysterious strong person who can't distinguish his cultivation. Once this lineup is added to the Qin Huangmi Valley, it will be convenient to have 60 strong fighting emperors, 6 strong people in the source environment, and 1 person who doesn't know the depth but is also extremely dangerous. In this way, the gap between Xiao Men and Qin Huangmi Valley just now is a big reversal in the twinkling of an eye. The situation that had been extremely favorable to Xiao Men became precipitous in an instant. In the Shay shop, Xiao Yang's face was very dignified and looked at the people standing in the void not far from the other side, especially when his eyes glanced over the black-robed man headed by him. The emergence of the strong in the source environment turned the situation in the field in an instant. The scene that was originally favorable to Xiao Yang and others was no longer there. Although the war has not yet started, it seems very obvious what the outcome of the war is in terms of the situation in the field. Qin Huangmi Valley is superior to Xiao Yang in terms of the number of strong people in Huiyuan territory and the number of strong people fighting against the emperor. It can be said that Xiao Yang and others have no possibility of victory. Aware of this, even the people of Xiao Men behind Xiao Yang couldn't help sinking slightly, and even some people felt a retreat. No matter how precious the pill is, it's not as important as their small lives. It's impossible for this team of only more than 40 people to fight against a sect with nearly 70 people. Moreover, the gap in the number of strong people between the two sides has become particularly obvious. Fighting with it at this time is tantamount to dying. They are crazy about the Huaji pill, it's not enough to take your life in. Xiao Yang, Jie, I've heard your name like thunder. After staying in the western regions for so long, I finally saw your true face. Just when everyone on both sides was silent, the man in black robe, who was the leader, suddenly shifted his eyes. A pair of scarlet eyes peeped out in the black fog, staring at Xiao Yang opposite like a poisonous snake, and a strange smile in his mouth. Oh, a group of non-human and non-ghost things. I'm impatient to wait for this day. The account between us starts from you first. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang was staring at the former with extremely cold eyes. His face showed a strong killing intention. At the moment when the voice fell in his mouth, his body shook. In an instant, the light blue flame roared up and wrapped around Xiao Yang's whole body. Seeing this scene, a pair of scarlet eyes under the black robe could not help but coagulate slightly. With his eyesight, he could naturally recognize that the flame attached to Xiao Yang at the moment must be strange fire. However, he was surprised that the strong smell of this strange fire did not come from the spirit-fighting continent, but those strange fire bodies that had already turned into spirit on the Source Wu continent. Is it the spirit of different fire? Aware of this, the face under the black-robed man's mask changed slightly, but then, when he checked the light blue flame on Xiao Yang again, he couldn't help frowning. If it was the spirit of different fire, why would the color of different fire on Xiao Yang be light blue? As far as he knows, There is no different fire on the list of different fires that shows this color. Moreover, if Xiao Yang really has the spirit of different fires, how can he show such a look when he sees himself and others? That dignified expression doesn't seem to be pretended. Although it was guessed that Xiao Yang was not guarded by the spirit of different fire, the black-robed man was a little afraid of Xiao Yang. Although Xiao Yang's cultivation is far inferior to him, he has heard of the former's terrible combat power for a long time. It has been common for him to fight beyond his level. Therefore, even with his cultivation, he can't help worrying about the war with Xiao Yang this time. Yi Luotian, I didn't expect you to hang out with these guys. At this time, another place in the field, Qin Shuo suddenly heard a low cold hum. As the overlord force in the western regions, Qin Shuo naturally heard of the ghost hall. When he saw these people in black, he recognized their identity at the first sight. Ha ha ha, Valley Master's words are bad. How can we be called gangsters? I invited these people to the scene because our goals are the same. You and I are for Xiao Yang, and they are also for Xiao Yang. The enemy of the so-called enemy is a friend. We have a cooperative relationship now. It's chilling for Valley Master to say this. However, for Qin Shuo's cold hum, Yi Luotian smiled and shook his head. A cold light flashed through the depths of a pair of cloudy old eyes, and a sad smile on his face. What bullshit cooperation. How can anyone else interfere with the people we want to deal with? Also, listen to me clearly. The people I want to kill are Xiao Yang and Lung Bingshuang, but he is not the only one. Don't compare me with these bastards. Jie. Valley Master Qin, don't you know the previous situation well enough? If we don't come forward, you can rely on the people who are lost in the valley of Qin Huang and want to deal with Xiao Yang. If you really think we're meddling, that's okay. We'll leave now. Then, we'll see how Qin Huangmi Valley fights Xiao Yang. And just at the moment when Qin Shuo's voice fell, the man in black was a strange smile. His scarlet eyes swept on Qin Shuo and Xiao Yang, full of sneers. You! As soon as the black-robed man said this, Qin Shuo's old face suddenly twitched. Although he didn't want to admit it in his heart, the fact is that without the help of these people in front of him, they couldn't be the opponent of Xiao Yang. For a long time, Qin Shuo finally snorted reluctantly. Soon, Yi Luotian looked at him again and said with a smile, Valley Master, instead of complaining here, it's better to take this opportunity to eradicate Xiao Yang with both hands, so as not to have endless trouble in the future. Hearing this, Qin Shuo's fierce eyes immediately fell on Yi Luotian. In the final analysis, all this was not caused by this guy, but it's a pity that now he can't retreat. He has to solve Xiao Yang first and then talk about the matter between them. All the people in the valley listen to the order and give it to me. Kill. Qin Shuo waved his big hand and pointed his finger at Xiao Yang. Then, a crowd of Qin Huangmi Valley people behind him shouted and killed, with great momentum. A strong momentum interwoven in the sky, like a mountain torrent and tsunami, rushed at Xiao Yang and others. In the face of this amazing scene, the people behind Xiao Yang were pale and frightened. At present, the war has just begun, but these people have no intention of fighting. Kill. However, at this time, a large group of people suddenly emerged in the rear of Xiao Yang and others. Dozens of human figures flew over the sky and stormed away at the people in Qin Huangmi Valley. There were killing voices everywhere. The prestige was no less than the former. Ha ha. Brother Xiao Yang, you saved us from the bitter sea that day. Afterwards, they took the initiative to come to me and hoped to ask me to lead them to participate in today's war to help you. Looking up, I'm afraid that the number of strong people coming at the moment is no less than 40. When Xiao Yang looked for his voice, LV Zhongtian's body fell down from the front. As soon as he saw Xiao Yang, he arched his hands with great respect. As for those people who rushed forward, naturally, they were the strong fighting emperors saved by Xiao Yang in the West Depression of Pingshan not long ago. However, today's crowd is obviously much larger than a few days ago. The sudden emergence of LV Zhongtian and the strong fighting emperor was really a timely help to Xiao Yang at the moment. The originally unfavorable situation immediately became stable after these people joined. The more than 40 people fought with the strong fighting emperor in Qin Huangmi Valley. It was difficult to compete in a short time, and the war situation immediately became stable. Ha ha ha, Brother Lu is really a timely help. Xiao wrote it down and will thank you again afterward. The appearance of LV Zhongtian made Xiao Yang feel relieved. The burden on his shoulder seemed to lighten a lot in a moment. Even if he hugged LV Zhongtian hard, his face was full of gratitude. Hehe, Brother Xiao is very serious. You saved us first. We are all honored to help you. They found me after they left the West Depression of Pingshan that day. I found some friends I knew at the beginning with some prestige in the western regions. Unfortunately, only 11 people were able to win over. It's really a disaster. It's hard to see the truth. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang couldn't help nodding and sighing. People's hearts are like this. The icing on the cake is valuable, but only sending charcoal in the snow can we see people's true feelings. This time, LV Zhongtian's action will undoubtedly radicalize the relationship between Xiao Yang and him in an instant. It's you, Xiao Yang. No wonder these guys suddenly disappeared. It's all your good deeds. Hearing the dialogue between Xiao Yang and LV Zhongtian, Yi Luotian, who was already annoyed by this matter, suddenly realized that it was Xiao Yang who saved these people from the West Depression of Pingshan. No wonder he even broke off his connection with these dead leaf insects in the human body. Xiao Yang, who had a different fire, could easily remove his dead leaf insects. Looking at Yi Luotian, who was staring at them with a gloomy face at this time, Xiao Yang and LV Zhongtian both smiled coldly, and their eyes were filled with infinite killing intention. For this thief, I'm afraid all the people present have a will to kill heart. Today, the rest of the people present may survive, but Yi Luotian will die. Go, too. These people alone are not their opponents. In the void, the black-robed man glanced at the people who were fighting in front of him, and a look of disdain flashed in his eyes. The role of the emperor fighting strong man in this battle was just cannon fodder. Even if there were more, the final decisive power was still in their hands, or in his hands. After all, in front of a strong person who returns to the source environment, the so-called source environment is nothing at all. At the command, the 10 men in black also nodded in response, and immediately moved forward, which turned into streamers and quickly intervened in the fighting crowd ahead. With the participation of these 10 strong fighters, the battle ahead immediately fell towards Qin Huangmi Valley. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang dared not be careless, raised his hand and waved. The people of Xiaomen behind him also rushed up with renewed confidence at the moment. The joining of LV Zhongtian and others flattened the situation between the two sides in an instant. Even in terms of the number of strong people fighting the emperor, Xiaomen is more than 10 more than Qin Huangmi Valley. It's only a matter of time to defeat each other. Then, it's the turn of the two sides to officially fight the strong. Hallmaster, let me and Qin Jiu Master deal with this boy. As long as you can take others. No, I want to fight Xiao Yang myself. You don't deserve it. Without waiting for Yi Luotian's words to fall, the black-robed man on one side suddenly hissed coldly, with disdain in his words. A word fell, which also changed Yi Luotian's face. The former saw the situation, but gave a cold hum from his nose, saying, I advise you not to have any wrong ideas, let alone think that I despise you. Although your cultivation is not low, as far as I know, Xiao Yang has never failed in the same level. Even if you two work together, you can never be his opponent. What's more, he still has a different fire and has an overwhelming advantage over your own attributes. If you want to die, I won't stop you. After some ridicule, Rao Yi Luotian was reluctant, but he had to bite his teeth and keep silent. He had fought with Xiao Yang. He knew how powerful the latter was and he was never his opponent. However, the people in front of him said that neither he nor Qin Shuo could be Xiao Yang's opponent, which underestimated them. Unfortunately, now, it is the former who can control the situation, not Yi Luotian. Even he has to bow his head in front of the Hall Lord. Xiao Yang, let me meet you for a while. As for others. The Hall Master first looked at Xiao Yang with a grim smile. Then, he glanced at the two black-robed people behind him. They immediately nodded, flashed, and stood in front. Then, Yi Luotian followed Qin Shuo and others closely. The 6 strong people in the source environment blocked Xiao Yang and others opposite. In addition to Xiao Yang, The other 5 people are all facing a strong source of Huiyuan in Qinhuang Valley. Xie and Tongtian Giant Ape face the 2 strong Huiyuan strongmen in the Ghost Hall at the same time, while LV Zhongtian and Murong Xian are the 2 Huiyuan strongmen who welcome the Qin Wasteland and Fan Valley. As for the Valley Master, it is natural to compete with his old enemy Lung Bingshuang. In the field at this time, only Yi Luotian is still alone. Seeing that there was no other obstacle on the field, Yi Luotian suddenly smiled, and a pair of cloudy eyes also fell on the cold frost. Aware of their eyes, the cold frost complexion suddenly became gloomy, and their heart was also extremely dignified. Facing 2 strong men of the same level with one person's strength, Lung Bingshuang thinks he doesn't have this strength, but at present, the situation is tense. I'm afraid that's the only way. Bang! However, at this time, Xiao Yang on one side suddenly waved his big sleeve, and a black streamer suddenly swept out, directly facing the leaves falling into the sky. The 2 just hit each other at the first time, and the powerful power was a blow that blew Yi Luotian out. When the public looked at it with shocked eyes, they saw a purple and gold steel body standing in the void, staring at the falling leaves with indifferent eyes, and the chi of killing and cutting all over the body continued to emerge. Puppet. Seeing this scene, the people were shocked. With their eyesight, they could naturally distinguish the strength of the puppet. Judging from the one just now, I'm afraid its combat power is at least above the Huiyuan territory. Then, everyone's eyes fell on Xiao Yang, a puppet of Huayuanjing level. It seems that not only Yi Luotian has dark hands, but also Xiao Yang has been hiding part of his strength. A puppet at the source level, which is enough to change the outcome of the whole war to a great extent. Beiwang, kill me. Then, Xiao Yang's extremely cold voice sounded, and the hanging North King responded with a dry, dumb and indifferent voice. Then, his body moved suddenly, and the whole person turned into a streamer. In a twinkling, he collided with Yi Luotian. War, imminent. When the North King and Yi Luotian collided with each other, Xiao Yang and others also set their eyes on their opponents. Soon, Lung Bingshuang and others collided with the Huiyuan strong men on the other side of Qin Huangmi Valley. At the same time, hundreds of strong fighting emperors on the other side were also fighting fiercely. At this time, only Xiao Yang and the Hall Master were still looking at each other face to face. At this moment, the hearts of these 2 people are very clear that whether they are the 100 strong fighting emperors or the 12 strong Huayuanjing on both sides, these people are not the core of the war. Only the 2 of them, the victory or defeat of either side between Xiao Yang and the Hall Lord, will completely break the deadlock of the war. The key to victory or defeat lies in these 2 people. Jie. Xiao Yang, you know, our temple has been waiting impatiently in this place for this day for more than 20 years. Since we first heard about you, we can't wait to catch you back. Now, you and I finally meet. Don't worry, this time, our temple will take you back. Under the black robe, a pair of scarlet eyes stared at Xiao Yang opposite like a poisonous snake, with ferocious meaning. I almost heard that. It's a pity that you never seem to succeed. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang responded with a sneer on his face. At the same time, he deliberately stretched out his fingers and buttoned his ears. This scene made the face under the main mask of the hall twitch. Talk big. Today, I want to see what kind of skill your legendary Yang Emperor has. With a low cry, the body of Hall Master Han suddenly flashed, and the speed of terror was like a ghost. At the moment when his body disappeared, Xiao Yang's face became dignified. Although he said so, the other party was a strong one at the source level after all. As for the overall strength, Hall Master Han was far better than him in any aspect. If he dared to treat him with an ordinary heart, then he is bound to pay a heavy price for it. His mind moved and his strength suddenly gathered. The winged elephant decided to rise up with the trend. Tianjueba also showed it together without hesitation. The raging fire filled the whole body and protected Xiao Yang. Then, at the moment when Xiao Yang's body flashed, behind him, a cold killing intention suddenly rushed in, and the breaking wind sounded in Xiao Yang's ears. The harsh sound made people's eardrums ache. Then, in the next moment, a dry claw covered by the source gas broke the void in front of him, and Xiao Yang's body had long disappeared. Under the strange mask, a pair of scarlet eyes showed a look of surprise. The Hall Master never thought that Xiao Yan, who was in the later stage of Huyuan territory, could escape his attack with his speed. Taking back his palm, the Lord of the Hall narrowed his eyes to see a trace of blood on one side of his little thumb. His killing intention was even more fierce. He turned his head suddenly. Xiao Yang was stretching out his fingers to wipe a small blood mark left on one side of his cheek. At the same time, their eyes collided again. It's amazing that you can escape the attack of this hall. But that's it. With the low voice of words coming out of the main mouth of the hall, the next moment, his body shape disappeared in place again. But this time, Xiao Yang didn't hide from him. Instead, he raised his hands quickly, and the source gas in his body ran rapidly. The fierce light blue fire condensed rapidly over his head, quickly forming a huge finger. Mi Huang means Yin Bone Claw. In an instant, the body shape of the Lord of the Hall appeared in front of Xiao Yang not far away. At the same time, on his outstretched claws, a layer of almost solid source gas cuticle was wrapping the whole palm, and a violent killing spirit spread from it. At the same time, there was even a thin layer of blood fog. The 5 sharp claws easily tear up the invisible void, and the cold breath is amazing. Boom! Then the next moment, the 2 powerful fighting skills collided fiercely. The earth-shaking explosion immediately spread over Shahepu, and the energy storm swept through. Everyone in the lower city changed their faces for the earth-shaking blow. Even Lung Bingshuang and Qin Shuo, who were fighting fiercely at this time, they could not help but turn around and look at Xiao Yang and the Hall Master at this time. When the storm dispersed, everyone in the sky and the earth looked at the center of the explosion, but they saw Xiao Yang and the Lord of the Hall colliding fiercely with each other. The dull sound of collision spread across the sky, boxing to meet, and each blow was extremely heavy. Such a collision does not have too much fancy, nor does it stress any skills. It is only a positive collision in the most violent way. The victory or defeat depends on which of the two can persist longer. In such a fierce collision, all parts of the 2 people's bodies that can be contacted have become the 2 people's most powerful weapons, whether hands and feet, elbows and knees, or chest, waist and back, but everything that can be used has become the most ferocious weapon in the collision at the moment. The skirt was like iron, and the skin was like steel. Such a fierce collision lasted for a quarter of an hour. In the whole process, as the leader of the hall who returned to the source, his face under his mask was extremely ugly. In his scarlet eyes, the original bright light became dim. Damn it! Is this boy's physical strength so strong that my attack can't hurt him at all? When their fists collided fiercely again, the body of the Hall Master was a little embarrassed and withdrew more than a dozen steps. On the contrary, Xiao Yang stood tall and motionless in the empty body. Under the seemingly thin body, there was a terrible force like a giant dragon. At the moment when the body shape of the Hall Master was fixed, Xiao Yang's body shape suddenly approached. His face was extremely fierce, and his killing intention in his eyes was not concealed at all. He clenched his fist with his right hand, and his terrible strength gathered wildly, and hit the Hall Master's head with a hard punch. In terms of physical strength, even if the Hall Master is a strong man at the level of returning to the source, he will not be Xiao Yang's opponent. This time, he suffered a great loss. In a twinkling of an eye, Xiao Yang's fist was only a few inches away from the head of the Hall Master, and the latter's heart was trembling with fear. Immediately after that, the roar full of anger was suddenly issued. Damn it, smelly boy, get out of this temple. With a roar, the Lord of the Hall suddenly rolled up his sleeve robe, and the surging source gas condensed, so that the black sleeve robe was as hard as iron in an instant, and fiercely greeted the fist falling from Xiao Yang on his head. Dang! The collision sound like the beating of gold and iron sounded, and the face under the mask of the Hall Master became fierce. However, at the next moment, when the Hall Master wanted to take another shot, Xiao Yang's fist was shocked, and a more terrible force poured out. In the frightened eyes of the latter, smash this layer of dark sleeve robe wrapped by source gas. At the moment when the sleeve robe was broken, Xiao Yang's fist hit the mask-covered face of the Hall Master. Although most of the power had been resisted by the source gas, the remaining strength still twisted the face of the Hall Master in an instant. Strangely, the mask that originally covered his face, there was no change under Xiao Yang's fist. The mask flew out, and Xiao Yang took it in his hand, while the body shape of the Hall Master couldn't help flying back until dozens of feet away, which made him tremble and stabilize his body shape. When he looked up, he exposed a slightly twisted dark old face under the black robe, and the deep sunken eye sockets showed scarlet color. The half of the old face on the right became blue and purple, and even a trace of blood flowed out. The black robe he was wearing was already in a mess, and the whole person was embarrassed from the inside to the outside. It's hard to believe that a strong person at the level of returning to the source environment would look like this under the strong attack of a strong person in the source environment. If ordinary people see it, I'm afraid they have to doubt the authenticity of his return to the source environment cultivation. Then, when the Lord of the Hall saw the mask held by Xiao Yang, the expression on a dark old face changed again. The old face full of gullies on the left couldn't help twitching. The scarlet light in his eyes, which had been dim, also surged up suddenly, and a ferocious killing intention condensed madly in his heart. Xiao Yang, die for me. The slightly hoarse low roar came out from the throat of the Hall Master, like the roar of an evil beast. At the same time, the source gas in his body flowed wildly. With a wave of his hand, he only heard a harsh collision sound of chains. Then, the strange chains painted black suddenly shot out from behind the Hall Master, like a poisonous snake through the void, stabbed Xiao Yang with lightning speed. More than 10 chains appeared in front of Xiao Yang in the blink of an eye. The sound of breaking the air was continuous. The sharp tip of the chain surrounded Xiao Yang's body and attacked Xiao Yang from all directions. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang's face sank. With a big hand, the black Xian heavy ruler appeared inch by inch under the package of different fire. When the giant ruler appeared in his hand, the dozens of chains had also come to Xiao Yang. Then, Xiao Yang shook his arm and waved a huge ruler in his hand. The broad ruler front severely hit the black chains that were shooting at him. Sparks burst out, and the clandestine and crisp collision sound sounded one after another. However, between a few breaths, more than a dozen chains around Xiao Yang were repelled. At this time, the body shape of the Hall Master, but I don't know when, was like a ghost, suddenly appeared behind Xiao Yang, and a ghost hand was grasping Xiao Yang's head. Die. However, at the moment when the claw of the Hall Master fell, Xiao Yang, who was originally facing him, turned abruptly in an extremely strange posture. At the same time, a fist covered by purple and gold scales was also violently waved at the same time and collided with the ghost hand of the former. Bang! When the two collided, they left immediately. The dull collision sound was like heavy thunder. When the main body of the hall was shocked, it was to forcibly remove the distance from the arm. On the contrary, Xiao Yang withdrew dozens of steps backward. Then he looked low and stabilized his body. When he looked up, he was full of strange fire in his eyes, and the mysterious ruler in his hand had disappeared. Hey! Aware of this, the master of the hall couldn't help but wonder. How could the Shenchong ruler still held in Xiao Yang's hand suddenly disappear? 7 broken sky ruler. However, at this time, behind him, there was a sudden sound of fierce drinking. When the hall master turned his head and looked, he only saw another Xiao Yang in the void not far behind him. However, there was no room for the lord of the hall to think about it. The startling feet and mang that merged into one had come close to him, and even couldn't escape at all. Hiss. However, when the Kai Mang severely bombarded the hall master, a strange scene suddenly appeared. In front of the hall master, a large mass of liquid that looked very viscous suddenly appeared, and at the same time, a huge barrier was formed to keep the hall master behind, while the magnificent ruler was resisted by the strange viscous liquid. The powerful Kai Mang pounded on the viscous liquid like a boulder into the swamp. In Xiao Yang's shocked eyes, he was deeply trapped. Finally, all the energy attached to the Kai Mang was swallowed up by the strange mucus. He took back the strange viscous liquid, and the sight of the hall lord also fell on the Xiao Yang opposite. At the same time, the surprised color in his eyes gradually returned to calm. "It's just an avatar," he said in a low tone. Then, the body of the main body of the hall flashed. In an instant, he appeared in front of the avatar, leaned out and blasted hard at the latter's chest. Almost at the same time, Xiao Yang on the other side also quickly controlled the avatar and detonated all the energy in his body. After Xiao Yang's accomplishments broke through the source territory, the accomplishments of the 9 incarnations still stopped at the fighting emperor. Even if they were transformed into one, the strength of the incarnation was no more than the 9-star fighting emperor. It was impossible to face the Hall Master, who was a strong person returning to the source territory with such strength. Just now, it was the maximum limit with a surprise attack on the back. I let you explode. Seeing that the avatar in front of him was about to explode, the Master of the Hall suddenly flashed a violent color in his eyes, and the speed and power of his hand were more rapid. Before the avatar made any response, he hit through the latter's chest, and then suddenly shook. The terrible power poured out suddenly, which shattered the avatar. Soon, the Lord of the Hall turned slowly, and his fierce eyes fell on Xiao Yan again. It's a good means. Unfortunately, your incarnation cultivation is too low. If you want to hurt our temple, he doesn't deserve it. With a faint sneer, while the words fell, on the body surface of the Hall Master, the previous strange viscous liquid reappeared, climbed and attached like a living creature, covering the body surface of the Hall Master. No wonder you can fight back in that situation just now. Did you rely on the power of this avenue? Hearing the speech, Xiao Yan's face was also calm, but there was a bit of fear in the strange mucus eyes on the front. With his eyesight, he could naturally recognize that the strange liquid must be a kind of power of the road, but what he didn't expect was that the Master of the Hall had reached this point. Xiao Yan thought he could not control the power of the avenue so well, such as driven by his arm. It has to be said that the Lord of the Hall, as a strong person in the source territory, still had a place he was proud of. Can you let me release the power of the road? You are still the first of all the source environments I have seen, but that's all. Because next, the dark road of this temple will engulf you in endless darkness. For a moment, when the words in the main mouth of the hall fell, a dark viscous liquid spread like a tide, completely wrapped up the battle circle of the two people, and the world around them became dark. This video will end here.